Good evening, friends. I'm so glad you could join me tonight. I am getting started on the pizza casserole that serves 8. This is just a great baked pasta recipe that allows you to put several different variations going. What I've already done is I've already cooked my pasta, my box of ziti, and I've already cooked my ground meats. I had a big pot of ground meat going on the back burner there. It was actually all of the meat for this recipe, and it is the meat for the pasta and bean soup recipe as well. So I just cooked it all at once, set it aside to drain. I'll bring it back in just a minute, and we'll add that to it. We're gonna go ahead and get started on the base for the sauce for the pizza casserole. So I have in my pan that I cooked the meat in. I dumped the meat out, and I've added a couple tablespoons of cooking oil down in here, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding my other ingredients. So I've got my cooking oil here in my pan. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. And like I showed in the cooking and prep video, I used the already minced garlic that comes all chopped up and ready for you. So I'm going to just level off 2 tablespoons of that and get it going. And I'm just going to stir that around in the oil because the minced garlic tends to clump together. So I'm going to let it break up a little bit. I'm going to add my 1/2 cup of diced onion. Again, my onion's going to splatter a little bit because I've had it in cold water. That water reacts to that hot oil. So I've got my onion going. I'm actually going to let my onion and garlic kind of meld together here a little bit while it's getting started. And give my onion a few extra minutes by itself in the pan with that hot oil. My next ingredients that I'm going to add are my 1/2 cup of bell pepper. I'm going to add 1 cup of sliced mushrooms. And I'm going to add 1 cup of black olives. Plus I'm going to add my fresh herbs, my basil and oregano that I got from my garden, and cut them up, gave them a nice chopping of that. So while my onions are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and add my basil and oregano at this point in time. I want those herbs to have a chance to bloom with the garlic and the onions, kind of meld their flavors together there with that oil. This is a cast iron Dutch oven that's ceramic coated. I have 2 of these. One of my favorite dishes to cook with. They retain so much heat. They can go on the barbecue, they can go on the stovetop, they can go in the oven. Very, very versatile. I like pans that I can use for multiple things, and this is one of my favorites. I have it in white and in red. I love it so much, I bought 2. Alright, so I have my onions and my herbs and my garlic here. I'm going to go ahead and add my bell pepper. And my mushrooms. So if you think of this as a pizza, and this is kind of my version of a supreme pizza. So on a supreme pizza, you're going to have your onions, you're going to have your bell peppers, you're going to have your mushrooms, and those kind of things. This is what, if I was ordering a supreme pizza, these are ingredients I would ask for on my pizza. So these are the ingredients that are going in my sauce. All right, let me grab my olives. We're just going to let those onions and peppers keep cooking while I get my olives open and going. olives tend to dry out, so I didn't want to open them till right before I needed them. Now you can use diced olives, sliced olives, or no olives. It's your choice. I leave them whole. Again, for me, it's one of those things that if somebody doesn't like it, it's easy for them to get out. It smells so yummy. My dogs hear me hitting my pan with my spoon and they think somebody's knocking somewhere. Okay, so my veggies have had a little bit of a chance to cook down. My onions are getting that nice translucent color. I can really smell the bell peppers and those herbs. So I've got a nice blend of flavoring going here. And to this, I'm going to go ahead and start adding my other ingredients. So I have my Italian sausage and my ground beef, my 8 ounces of Italian sausage, 8 ounces of ground beef, and then I've also added a little bit of venison sausage to this as well. And I'm going to stir that meat in. There's also pepperoni on the list. I'm going to wait and add the pepperoni right at the very end when I add the cheese, and you'll see why in just a minute. All right, so this is the base for my sauce. To this, I'm going to add a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. And stir that in. Now, when I cook my pasta, I cook it a little bit al dente, which means just slightly underdone. The actual translation from Italian to English is to the tooth. That's what al dente means, which means it's sticky to the tooth. That way, when I add this sauce to it and I bake this pasta recipe, some of this sauce will get absorbed into that last little bit of pasta and my pasta doesn't turn to mush. So there's my tomato sauce. I'm also going to add my 2 teaspoons of salt and my 1 teaspoon of pepper. I have a little tiny measuring spoon here. It's 1/8 of a teaspoon, so that took several little scoops, but just wanted to make sure I got the right amount. And 2 teaspoons of salt. I have a little 1/2 teaspoon here, so I'm going to use 4 of those. And give that a nice stir. All right, whenever I'm making a red sauce, a tomato-based sauce, almost always I'm going to add a couple tablespoons up to a 1/4 cup of heavy cream or milk to it, especially if you're using canned tomatoes that are canned in these metal cans. There tends to be, for me, a bit of a tinny taste to the tomatoes. It's that higher acid content that it has. The milk just helps cut that, helps level it out a little bit, and give it a nice creaminess. All right, stir that in. So even when I'm making spaghetti sauce, I add a little bit of milk or heavy cream to it. And if I hadn't told you that, you probably never would have known when you ate one of my recipes or one of the dishes I've made that there was cream or milk in that sauce. All right, so this is a nice wet sauce. And to this, I'm going to add my pasta. I'm going to add my 2 cups of shredded cheese, and I'm going to add my pepperoni. If I was making this for us to eat tonight here at home, I would leave it in this and I would put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 20 to 30 minutes until the cheese has a chance to melt all the way through and you really get the ingredients have a chance to really develop their flavors and to combine really well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my pasta and we're going to stir the pasta into this. We'll add the pepperoni and cheese and then we're going to dump it over into a foil pan because I'm actually going to freeze this dish and use it later on. We actually had this a couple days ago here at the house and so we're not quite ready to have it again. So I'm going to pour this over into another pan and this will be a frozen meal for us that we will have here in the next week or so. All right, this is my 1 pound of baked ziti. It's already been drained and rinsed. I'm just going to stir this down through. Alright, so I'm going to add my 2 cups of shredded cheese. You can use any kind of cheese that you want. I'm actually going to be using a cup of Parmesan. And a cup of mozzarella. You could also add other cheeses to this if you wanted to add a ricotta or cottage cheese. It would be similar to lasagna in texture. It's up to you. Whatever your family likes, whatever your family is willing to try, and maybe whatever you can sneak in without them knowing, that may be part of the deal as well. So as you can see, even with this being hot and sitting here on the stove, my cheese isn't melting very well. And this is why this would go into the oven for 20 to 30 minutes in a covered casserole dish or in a Dutch oven, something along that line. You could also put this, if you wanted to, in a crock pot. You could stir this up at lunchtime, put it in a crock pot and eat it later that evening. Put it on low for several hours. All right, so here's my pepperoni. So again, this is my version of a supreme pizza. All the things that I would ask for on my pizza. We would usually, if we're eating this right away, we would usually add red pepper flakes to it. But because this is one I'm freezing and it's probably going to be a week or two before we eat it, I'm not going to add the red pepper flakes. As they settle into a sauce, they tend to make the sauce get hotter. And I don't want it to be too spicy for us to eat. So I'm going to wait and I'll add the red pepper flakes on the day that I cook and serve it. All right, so there is my absolutely lovely pot of pasta. I'm going to set it to the back burner here and pull my foil pan forward. Alright, so I'm going to set this aside and let it cool. As it cools, it will settle as well. I know the pan looks really full right now, but it's going to settle down. I'm going to wrap it up in foil with 2 layers of foil. I'm going to slide it in a 2-gallon Ziploc bag, and then I will freeze it right away so it'll be available whenever we're ready to eat it for a meal. So there you go. There's your quick and easy pizza casserole. You can do this same type of recipe for any way that you would order your pizza. So if you think of different pizza combinations, that's exactly what you can do here. Whatever your family traditionally does, you have all of those opportunities here as well.